Welcome back to Zarila HOA Stories. Drop your country or city name in comments. Chapter 1. The Return to the Valley. The tires crunched over gravel as my old truck climbed the narrow road into the valley. The air smelled the same as it did when I was a boy. Pine, smoke, and the cold sharpness of mountain wind. My grandfather's cabin sat hidden behind the trees, waiting. I hadn't seen it in years. But something was wrong. New signs stood at the roadside, bright, clean, and official-looking. HOA community, rules enforced. More signs followed, nailed to trees, stuck in the ground. Rules about noise, about parking, about building paint colors. I frowned. When did this place turn into a gated prison? At the valley entrance, a woman stood with a clipboard. She looked like she had been waiting. Mid-50s, sharp blonde bob, pressed clothes, lips pursed tight. She didn't smile when I slowed down. She stepped into the road. "Excuse me," she said. "This area is private property. Residents only." I leaned out the window. "I am a resident. My family's cabin is up there." Her eyes narrowed. "That cabin is under the jurisdiction of our homeowners association. You'll need to register with me before you do anything on the property." I almost laughed. "Register? With you?" "Lady, that cabin's been mine since my grandfather left it to me." Her hand tightened on the clipboard. "That's not how things work here anymore. We have rules. Fees. You can't just barge in." I put the truck in gear. "Watch me." Her face turned red, but she stepped aside. As I drove past, I could see her scribbling furiously on her clipboard. The cabin came into view, rough logs and stone chimney, still standing tall against the hills. It looked tired but strong, like it had been waiting for me. I cut the engine, stepped out, and breathed in the valley air. Silence. But it wasn't peaceful silence. It was the kind that made your neck prickle. As I began unloading supplies, movement caught my eye. A couple across the dirt road, sitting on their porch, quickly looked away. Another man watering plants froze, then turned his back. It felt like every eye in the valley was on me, waiting. Finally, a thin, nervous neighbor walked over. His voice was low. "You shouldn't have talked to her like that." "Who?" I asked, though I knew. He glanced around, then whispered, "Karen, the HOA president. She runs this place like a kingdom. People who fight her disappear from the valley." I stared at him. "Disappear?" He shrugged helplessly. "Houses foreclosed. Cars repossessed. Fines until they move out. Nobody wins against her." I worked through the afternoon, sweeping the porch, opening the shutters. Each time I looked up, I caught someone watching. Fear in their eyes. Not of me, but of what might happen to me. Near sunset, heavy footsteps stomped across the dirt path. Karen, clipboard under her arm, a paper in her hand. "You are already in violation," she snapped. "Unapproved renovations. Trespassing on HOA land. Penalties will apply." I took the paper, glanced at the outrageous fines, then crumpled it in my fist. "You can't fine me for cleaning my own porch." She leaned in close, her voice a hiss. "This isn't your porch. It belongs to the association. And if you don't follow our rules, you'll be removed." I didn't move, didn't blink. "Good luck with that." Her jaw clenched. For the first time, I saw it. Something burning behind her eyes. Not just authority. Obsession. She spun on her heel and stormed away, shouting over her shoulder, "You'll regret ever coming back here." The sun dipped, shadows stretched across the valley, and the cabin creaked as if the wood itself remembered her words. I stood on the porch, fist tight, heart steady. Karen thought she had scared me. She had no idea, because inside the cabin, under the old bed frame, I already knew what waited. My grandfather's chest. The one he told me to open only if the valley was in danger. And tonight, I was going to open it. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dark. The night was cold. The cabin groaned as the wind slid down the valley, rattling the shutters like old bones. I sat on the floor with the chest in front of me, my lantern throwing long shadows across the wood. My grandfather's handwriting was carved into the lid. "For family only." I hesitated, then pushed the rusted latch. The chest groaned open. Inside lay stacks of yellowed papers, brittle folders, and a bundle of keys wrapped in cloth. The first paper I pulled out wasn't just old. It was powerful. A deed. My grandfather's name on it. The description wasn't just for the cabin. It listed parcels, boundaries, the entire valley. My breath caught. My family hadn't owned a cabin. We had owned everything. Before I could read more, the floorboards outside creaked. Someone was on the porch. I quickly closed the chest and stood. The door rattled, then a sharp knock echoed. "Open up," a hushed voice whispered. I cracked the door. It was the thin neighbor from earlier, the one who had warned me about Karen. His eyes darted left and right like a hunted man. "Can I come in?" "Just for a minute." I stepped aside. He slipped in and pressed his back against the wall. His shirt clung to his chest with sweat. "You don't understand," he whispered. "She'll come after you now. Everyone who resists, she crushes them. I tried once. She fined me thousands for having the wrong fence paint. I had to beg her to stop. I narrowed my eyes. And you all just let her do this?" His voice cracked. "We're trapped. She has friends in the county office. The sheriff ignores complaints. Judges side with her. It's like she owns the valley." I thought about the deed in the chest. "No, she doesn't own it. We do." But I didn't tell him. "Not yet." He wrung his hands. "You should leave before it gets worse. I don't want to see another family destroyed." Before I could answer, there was a crash outside, something heavy knocking against metal. He froze. We peered through the window. In the glow of a streetlight, I saw two HOA board members, Karen's closest lackeys, snapping photos of my truck, my porch, even the firewood stacked neatly by the wall. The neighbor cursed under his breath. "They're building a case. Tomorrow, you'll get a violation notice for every stick of wood, every nail you hammer. That's how they bleed you dry." I opened the door, stepping onto the porch. "Hey," I shouted. The two men flinched, then smirked. One raised his phone, snapping more pictures. "Smile for the HOA," he said. The neighbor tugged my sleeve, his voice shaking. "Don't provoke them. That's what Karen wants." I ignored him, staring at the men until they finally walked off into the dark. My hands tightened into fists. Back inside, the neighbor whispered, "You can't fight her alone." I leaned against the cabin wall, the weight of the deed heavy in my pocket. Then maybe it's time she realizes she's not the one with power. His eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I almost told him, but stopped. Not yet. I needed proof. More than just an old piece of paper. The neighbor slipped back into the night, leaving me alone with the sound of owls and rustling trees. I stared at the chest until the lantern burned low. Sleep came in fragments. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw Karen's face, smug and certain, clipboard clutched like a weapon. Morning broke harsh and loud. I stepped outside to find a bright orange notice nailed to my porch beam. In big letters. "Violation. Unapproved occupancy." Below it, a fine amount so large it made me laugh. But it wasn't funny. It was war. As I ripped the notice down, movement flickered at the corner of my vision. Across the road, three neighbors stood together, whispering, watching. When they saw me notice, they quickly scattered. I knew what that meant. They weren't just afraid of Karen. They were afraid of me. That night, another knock came at the door. Softer this time. I opened it carefully. A different neighbor stood there, an older woman with tired eyes. She held a slip of paper. "She told us not to talk to you," the woman whispered. "But you need to know this." She pressed the note into my hand and hurried off into the shadows without another word. I unfolded the paper under the lantern. It was a warning. Just 3 words, scribbled in shaking ink. "She is watching." Chapter 3, The First Strike. Morning sunlight slid across the valley, cold and sharp. I stepped onto the porch, coffee steaming in my hand, when the sound of tires grinding gravel pulled my eyes to the road. A black SUV rolled up slow, stopping in front of the cabin. Karen climbed out, clipboard tucked under her arm, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Behind her came 2 HOA board members, the same ones who had been taking photos the night before. She marched up the steps without asking, heels clicking against the old wood. "You're in violation," she said flatly. I didn't move. "Good morning to you too." Her lips curled into a thin smile. Unregistered occupancy. Unauthorized renovations. And now, harassment of board members. She pulled a sheet from her clipboard and slapped it into my hand. "These fines are immediate. Total due, $14, $300. I stared at the paper, then let out a short laugh. "For what?" Sweeping my porch? Drinking coffee too loud? Her voice sharpened. Mock me all you want. These are enforceable penalties. Pay them, or we'll escalate. I tore the paper in half, letting it flutter onto the porch. Escalate, then. One of her board members stepped closer. You don't want to do this, pal. I locked eyes with him. I already am. For the first time, Karen's smile cracked. Her jaw tightened, and she scribbled something onto her clipboard like a soldier marking an enemy target. You'll regret that, she said coldly. Everyone does. She turned sharply, storming back to the SUV. The two men followed, one smirking as if they already knew how this would end. I thought that was it, but the valley had other plans. By noon, whispers moved faster than the wind. Neighbors crossing the road avoided my eyes. Mothers pulled their kids inside. An older man watering his garden muttered, "It doesn't last a week," before shutting his gate. It wasn't fear of me. It was fear of what Karen would do to me. By evening, a bright yellow notice was nailed to my truck's windshield. Unauthorized vehicle, subject to tow. I ripped it off and tossed it, but the message was clear. Karen was coming at me from every angle. That night, the knock at my door wasn't quiet. It was loud, angry. I opened it to find another neighbor. This one shaking, his face pale. You need to understand, he said. She won't stop. She'll bleed you until you leave. My cousin lost his house last year. She piled fines on him until the bank foreclosed. He begged her. She laughed. I clenched my jaw. And you all just bow to her? His eyes dropped to the ground. We survive. That's all we can do. I stepped closer. Not anymore. He looked at me like I was crazy, then hurried off into the dark, not daring to be seen on my porch. I went back inside, the weight of the old deed heavy in my jacket pocket. My grandfather had trusted me to protect this land. Karen thought it was hers. Not anymore. I sat at the table, spread the papers out, and traced the valley's boundaries with my finger. Every tree, every road, every house, all of it tied back to my family. A knock rattled the window. I spun around, heart pounding. Through the glass, a figure in the dark raised a phone, flashed blinding for a moment, then vanished into the night. The HOA wasn't watching me from a distance anymore. They were right at my window. By dawn, it escalated again. My truck was gone. I ran out into the road, gravel, dust still fresh where the tires had rolled. A towing slip fluttered under a rock on my porch. Vehicle removed by HOA authority. My blood boiled. This wasn't petty fines anymore. This was war. I clenched the slip in my fist, eyes narrowing. Karen thought she could scare me, break me, chase me out like the others. But she didn't know about the papers. And when I showed them, everything she'd built would collapse. As I turned to go back inside, something caught my eye. A new paper taped to my cabin door. No fines, no legal threats. Just 6 words, written in bold marker. Leave now, before it's too late. Chapter 4, Karen's Web. The morning air was heavy, thick with fog rolling down from the ridge. I stood on the porch, staring at the note taped to my door. Leave now, before it's too late. The words bled into me like poison. My fists tightened. Someone in this valley wanted me gone badly enough to leave warnings in the night. But who? A frightened neighbor? Or Karen herself, playing mind games? I ripped the note down and shoved it into my pocket. If they thought fear would drive me out, they didn't know me. By mid-morning, I heard the crunch of tires again. This time it wasn't Karen. It was one of her board members, a stocky man with a trimmed beard and mirrored sunglasses. He didn't knock. He circled my cabin slow, snapping photos of everything. Firewood, shutters, even the weeds near the fence. I stepped outside. Got enough pictures? I asked. He smirked. Just doing my job. Your job, I said flatly, is harassing people. He shrugged. You don't play by the rules, you pay. I stepped closer, close enough to see his reflection in the glasses. I'm not paying a damn cent. His smirk twitched, but he didn't answer. He just lifted his phone for one last shot and walked off, whistling. By noon, it wasn't just one man. It was 3. Different cars, different people, each one stopping to snap photos before driving away. My porch, my woodpile, even my curtains. It wasn't surveillance. It was intimidation. I could feel the neighbors watching through blinds, their fear pressing against me like invisible hands. Nobody would speak up. Nobody dared. Late afternoon, another notice appeared, nailed to the porch beam so hard it split the wood. Final warning. Continued violations will result in legal action and removal from premises. Removal. From my own land. I laughed bitterly, crumpling the notice, but the sound of my own voice felt hollow. As evening fell, the valley grew restless. I went to fetch water from the creek and passed two neighbors on the path. They froze when they saw me. One whispered, "That's him," and they turned away quickly, walking faster. I called after them. "What's wrong with you people? She doesn't own this place. She doesn't own me." One of them turned, face pale. "You don't understand. She'll ruin all of us if we side with you. We have families." "And I don't." I snapped. His mouth opened, then closed again. They walked away without another word. Back at the cabin, I opened my grandfather's chest again. The old documents spread across the table like a map of truth. Each page confirmed the same thing. The valley was mine. Legally, rightfully, undeniably. But what good was paper when an entire community lived in fear of one woman? I traced my finger along the boundary lines until my knuckles turned white. "You built your empire on lies, Karen," I whispered, "and I'm going to tear it down." The night came fast, swallowing the valley in silence. I lit the lantern, its flame trembling in the glass. I told myself I'd stay awake, guard the cabin, but exhaustion pulled at me. My eyes closed just for a moment. Then crash. Glass shattered. I jolted upright. Someone had thrown a rock through my front window. I grabbed the lantern and stormed outside, heart pounding. The cold bit at my skin as I scanned the darkness. A shadow moved near the tree line. Then another. Two figures, whispering, retreating into the night. "Hey!" I roared, chasing a few steps. But they vanished into the fog before I could reach them. I stood there, breathing hard, fists trembling. The only sound was the wind cutting through the valley. When I turned back, I saw it. Another note, pinned under the rock that shattered my window. Not a warning this time. A threat. Next time, it won't be a rock. Chapter 5, The Hidden Deeds. The shattered window let in the cold night air. Shards of glass glittered on the floor like broken ice. I swept them aside with the back of my boot, breathing hard, staring at the note pinned under the rock. Next time, it won't be a rock. The valley wasn't just hostile anymore. It was dangerous. I locked the door, pushed a chair under the handle, and sat at the table. My grandfather's chest sat open before me, papers spilling out like secrets too heavy to stay buried. I picked up the old deed again, hands trembling. The ink was faded, but the words were clear. Full ownership of the valley and all lands therein, passed to heirs of the Whitaker family. That was me, not Karen, not the HOA. Me. At dawn, I carried the deed outside, holding it like a weapon. The neighbors were already out, pretending to garden, pretending not to stare. Their eyes flicked to the paper in my hand. One brave woman, the same one who had slipped me the warning note before, shuffled closer. "You shouldn't show that," she whispered. "Why not?" I asked. "This proves she's lying. This valley belongs to me, to my family." Her eyes darted nervously toward the road. "She'll destroy you if you go public. You don't know the power she has." I leaned in, my voice low. "No, she doesn't know the power I have." The woman's lips pressed tight. She turned and hurried away before anyone saw her near me. By noon, the retaliation began. Two men in HOA polos walked the perimeter of my cabin, placing bright red markers in the ground. I stormed out, deed in hand. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded. "Surveying," one said flatly. "This land belongs to the HOA. You're trespassing." I shoved the paper in his face. "Read it. My grandfather owned every acre here. That means I do." He barely glanced before smirking. "Old paper. Doesn't matter anymore. The HOA runs this valley now." I felt heat rise in my chest. Not for long. They didn't argue. They just kept hammering red markers into the soil like they were planting flags of war. That night, I spread every document across the cabin floor. Deeds, maps, contracts, my grandfather's letters. One line stood out in his handwriting. "If the valley is threatened, the truth lies in the trust." I didn't know what he meant, but I knew one thing. The papers were enough to make Karen sweat. I bundled them up, tied them with rope, and slipped them into my backpack. Tomorrow, I'd take them to the courthouse. But Karen was always one step ahead. Just after midnight, headlights cut through the trees. I peeked through the cracked shutter. A caravan of SUVs crawled up the road. Doors slammed. Voices rose. Karen's voice carried above them all. Search every inch. Document everything. He's not leaving here with a thing. My chest tightened. They weren't just trying to find me anymore. They were coming for the papers. I shoved the deeds into the false bottom of the chest, covering them with blankets. My grandfather had built that compartment to hide valuables from thieves. Tonight, it might save me. A heavy knock rattled the door. Open up, a man barked. HOA inspection. I stood still, silent, heart thundering. The knock came again, harder this time. Last warning. I gripped the lantern, every muscle ready. Then silence. I held my breath, waiting. Outside, I heard footsteps circling, men murmuring, Karen's sharp voice cutting through. Finally, the sound of engines revving filled the valley. The SUVs rolled away into the night. I exhaled slowly, knees weak. On the porch, I found a paper nailed to the wood, dripping with black marker. Next time, we won't knock. Chapter 6, Karen's Revenge. The morning after the inspection, the valley felt different. Not quiet. Heavy. Like the air itself was waiting for a fight. I stepped outside and froze. My power lines had been cut. The cable hung loose, ends frayed. The porch light was dead. On the ground, another orange notice flapped in a breeze. Utilities suspended. HOA enforcement action. I clenched my fists. She was tightening the noose. By noon, I heard more engines. I ran to the road just in time to see a tow truck hauling away my truck, chains rattling, dust spraying. I sprinted after it, shouting, "Hey, that's my property." Karen's voice cut across the noise. She stood beside her SUV, arms folded, sunglasses hiding her eyes. "You were warned," she said calmly. "Unauthorized vehicle. Consider it impounded." I stormed up to her, heat rising in my chest. "You can't touch my truck. You can't touch any of this land. It's mine." She tilted her head, smile razor thin. "Then prove it. Until then, you're just another squatter." The tow truck disappeared around the bend. She tapped her clipboard with one manicured finger. "Oh, and I'll be adding daily storage fees. You'll owe more by the hour." I stepped closer, my voice low. "One day soon, Karen, you'll choke on your own rules." Her smile flickered for a split second, but then she turned and climbed into her SUV, slamming the door. The vehicle roared away, leaving me in the dust. That night, I lit candles in the cabin. The silence pressed hard against the walls. Every creak outside made me stiffen. Every shadow in the trees looked like another HOA spy with a camera. I sat at the table with my grandfather's papers spread before me. The deed, the maps, the trust documents. Proof. All of it proof. But proof was useless if Karen got her hands on it first. Around midnight, a faint knock rattled the back door. I grabbed the lantern and held it high. "Who's there?" The door creaked, open an inch. A voice whispered from the dark. "Don't say my name. Please." It was the thin neighbor, the first one who had warned me. His face was pale, eyes darting. He slipped inside, trembling. "She's furious," he said. "She's calling in favors. County code enforcement, the sheriff. She's trying to bury you in lawsuits." I clenched my jaw. "Let her. The deeds will bury her first." His eyes widened. "You have something, don't you? Something big." I hesitated, then nodded. "Bigger than she can imagine." He swallowed hard, lowering his voice. "Then protect it, because if she finds out, she won't just fine you. She'll ruin you." I leaned forward. "Why are you warning me again? What's in it for you?" He looked down, shame flickering across his face. "Because I tried to fight once, and she destroyed my brother's family. I can't stand by and watch her do it again." For the first time, I believed him. The next day, the war escalated. Karen sent men to nail giant violation notices on my fence posts. Bright red, bold letters. Trespasser. Eviction pending. Property seized. Neighbors walked by, eyes low, pretending not to see. But I saw their fear. I saw their silence. By evening, I had a stack of notices as thick as my arm. Each one designed to scare me, to break me, to make me pack up and leave like everyone before. But I didn't leave. I sat in the candlelight, holding the deed like a lifeline. Then, just before midnight, the phone rang. I froze. My cabin didn't even have service since the lines were cut. Yet the old landline on the wall buzzed, loud and shrill. I picked it up slowly. Static hissed. Then a woman's voice, low and sharp, cut through. You think you're clever, but tomorrow I'll drag you into court. And when I'm done, there won't be a single soul in this valley willing to stand beside you. The line went dead. I gripped the receiver, my breath shaking. Karen wasn't just threatening anymore. She was moving to strike. And I knew, tomorrow, the battle would leave the valley and land in a courtroom. Chapter 7. The Courtroom Showdown. The courthouse smelled like dust and old paper. My boots echoed on the tile floor as I walked toward the chamber. Every step felt heavier than the last. Karen was already there. She sat at the front table in a sharp navy suit, her hair pulled tight, eyes glittering with arrogance. Around her were stacks of folders, binders, and clipped papers, as if the entire HOA had been packed into neat little boxes ready to crush me. She smirked when she saw me. You're late. I set my grandfather's chest of documents on the table with a thud. No, I'm right on time. The judge entered. Everyone rose. Silence fell like a blade. Case number 14 to 223. Valley Homeowners Association versus. The judge paused, glancing at the papers. Versus the occupant of Cabin 9. Karen's lawyer stood, a slick man in a gray suit. Your Honor, my client represents the HOA that governs this valley. This occupant has refused to follow rules, pay dues, or acknowledge the association's authority. We ask for immediate eviction and heavy fines. Karen leaned back, arms folded smug. The judge turned to me. And you are? I straightened. The owner of the land. Karen barked out a laugh. Owner? You? That's rich. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have evidence of ownership? The room went still. I placed the bundle of old papers on the table. The maps, the deed, the trust documents. I opened them slowly, each page yellow with age, but clear as day. This valley, I said, voice steady, was bought by my grandfather 70 years ago. It was passed down through our family trust. The cabin is mine. The land is mine. And so is every acre your association pretends to control. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Karen's lawyer snatched up the papers, flipping through them. His smile faltered. These can't be valid. They're too old. Outdated. I leaned forward. Property deeds don't expire. The judge studied the papers carefully. His face was unreadable, but his silence was thunder in the room. Karen shot up from her chair. Her voice cracked. This is fraud. He's faking it. He's just some squatter with a box of lies. The judge raised a hand. Sit down, Mrs. Green. But she wouldn't. She pointed at me, her hands trembling. It doesn't belong here. He can't know. Her lawyer tugged at her sleeve. Karen, stop. The judge's eyes sharpened. Doesn't belong here? Can't know what? Karen froze. Her face went pale. The silence stretched until it burned. Then she forced a smile, lips tight. Nothing, Your Honor. I simply meant he can't know how much harm he's causing our community. But the way her voice broke told another story. The judge leaned back, tapping his gavel lightly. This court will recess for 48 hours. I'll be reviewing these documents thoroughly. If they hold weight, the association's authority here may not be legal at all. Gasps echoed in the chamber. Karen's mask cracked. Her hand slammed the table. You can't do this. This valley belongs to the association. To me, the gavel struck harder. Control yourself, Mrs. Green. The session ended. People filed out, whispering. Some glanced at me with wide eyes, like maybe for the first time they saw hope. I gathered the papers, sliding them back into the chest. My hand shook, but not from fear, from the weight of what this meant. Karen stalked past me, heels clicking sharp on the tile. She leaned close, her breath hot with venom. You think you've won, she hissed. But if I go down, I'll take every soul in this valley with me. I met her glare. The valley isn't yours to take. Her eyes flickered with something wild, something desperate. For the first time, She looked less like a queen and more like a cornered animal. She shoved past me and disappeared through the doors. Outside the courthouse, the thin neighbor stood waiting. He looked shaken. He leaned close and whispered, "Careful. She's not finished. She'll burn everything before she lets it go." I frowned. Why? Why is she so obsessed with this land? His lips trembled. His eyes darted around before he spoke. Because Karen's been hiding a secret for years. A secret about this valley. And if you keep pushing her, she'll have no choice but to expose it. A chill ran down my spine. What secret? I pressed. He swallowed, stepping back as if the words themselves were dangerous. "Meet me at midnight, at the old bridge. Then I'll tell you." Before I could answer, he hurried into the crowd and vanished. I stared after him, chest heavy. Whatever he knew, it was big. Big enough to scare even Karen. Chapter 8. The Neighbor's Revolt. The old bridge creaked under my boots as I waited. The night air was damp, carrying the smell of pine and river water. The valley was silent, too silent, like it was holding its breath. A figure appeared in the dark. It was the thin neighbor again, hood pulled low. He looked around nervously before stepping closer. "You shouldn't have brought those deeds to court," he whispered. "Karen's panicking. And when Karen panics, people get hurt." I crossed my arms, then started talking. "What's her secret?" He swallowed hard. "The HOA, it was never legal. Karen forged the paperwork years ago. She used it to take control of the valley. Faked signatures. Lied to the county. No one challenged her, so she grew stronger. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. You're saying she stole the valley?" "Yes," he said, voice shaking. "And she's terrified the truth will come out. That's why she's after you. You're the only one who can prove her empire is built on lies." Before I could respond, headlights flared at the end of the bridge. A black SUV screeched to a halt. Karen stepped out, her face twisted in fury. "So this is where the rats meet," she spat. "You think whispering in the dark will save you? I own this valley." The neighbor bolted, vanishing into the trees. Karen's voice echoed after him. "Run, coward, run." Her eyes snapped back to me, cold and sharp. "You've turned them against me. But when I'm finished, they'll crawl back begging for my rules." I didn't move. "No, Karen. They're done being afraid." The next morning, her grip began to slip. For the first time in years, neighbors ignored her notices. A family across the street tore the fines from their mailbox and set them on fire. An old man ripped down the HOA's no parking sign and cheered when others clapped. One by one, people started to speak. She fined me for painting my door. She made me tear down my garden. She threatened my kids with eviction. Their voices grew louder, angrier, no longer whispers but shouts. Karen stormed down the road, clipboard in hand, screaming, "Stop this nonsense. Every one of you is in violation. You'll pay, all of you." But no one moved. No one bowed. Instead, they turned to me. "Show us the papers," someone called. So I did. I stood on the cabin steps and held up the deed. My voice rang across the valley. This land doesn't belong to Karen. It doesn't belong to her association. My family owns this valley, and I won't let her bleed it dry anymore. A cheer broke out. For the first time, I saw fire in their eyes. Not fear, but defiance. Karen's face went red, her hands shaking. She ripped the clipboard in half, throwing the pieces to the dirt. "You think this changes anything?" she shrieked. "You think you can take 'em my power?" She pointed at me, voice trembling with rage. "If I go down, this valley burns with me." And then she turned and stormed away, her SUV roaring down the road. That night, the valley was restless. Neighbors whispered outside, meeting in small groups. Plans formed, calls to lawyers, petitions to dissolve the HOA, demand for justice. For the first time, Karen's kingdom was cracking. I should have felt relief. But instead, unease gnawed at me, because her words echoed in my head. If I go down, this valley burns with me. Near midnight, a pounding shook my cabin door. I grabbed the lantern and opened it. The thin neighbor stumbled inside, sweat dripping from his face. "She's losing it," he gasped. "Karen's not just angry. She's desperate. She's digging through old files, old records. She's threatening people to stay silent. She's saying, if the truth comes out, it won't just destroy her. It'll destroy you too." My chest tightened. What do you mean? He looked me dead in the eye. She knows something about your family. Something buried deep in those papers. She's been hiding it for years. The lantern flame flickered, shadows crawling across the walls. I stepped closer, my voice sharp. What does she know? He hesitated, eyes wide with fear. Meet me tomorrow at the courthouse. I'll show you what she's hiding. But be ready. If Karen finds out, she'll do anything to stop us. The lantern sputtered, smoke curling into the air. And outside, I swore I heard the crunch of footsteps in the dirt. Watching, listening, waiting. Chapter 9, Karen's Meltdown. The next morning, the valley woke to chaos. Karen's SUV roared down the dirt road like a storm. She slammed the brakes in front of the neighbor's house and jumped out, hair wild, eyes blazing. She screamed at the family on the porch. You think you can defy me? You think you can stand with him? She ripped violation notices from her bag and hurled them at their feet. You'll all pay for this. The father stepped forward, trembling but firm. We're done listening to you, Karen. His words struck like a hammer. Others came out of their homes, gathering in the street. For once, no one looked away. Karen spun, pointing at me as I walked up the hill. This is your fault. You poisoned them against me. I stopped in the center of the crowd. No, Karen. They were already tired of your lies. Her face twisted. She grabbed a metal signpost from the ground, swinging it wildly. Lies. You think you know the truth? You don't know anything about this valley. The crowd gasped. Children cried as their parents pulled them back. Karen staggered forward, eyes burning like coals. You don't belong here, she shouted. Your family never belonged here. I stepped closer, voice calm but sharp. What are you talking about? Her laugh was high broken. You think those deeds make you powerful? You think your grandfather was some hero? She spat in the dirt. He built all of this on a lie. A stolen lie. Murmurs rippled through the neighbors. My chest tightened. What lie? Her hands shook, the signpost clattering to the ground. She pressed her face close to mine, whispering like venom. He wasn't the rightful owner. He took this land. He cheated the valley. And I can prove it. The words hit me harder than a rage. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Blue lights flickered through the trees. Karen didn't stop. She climbed onto the hood of her SUV, shouting like a prophet at the crowd. You all think he's your savior, but he's no better than me. His bloodline is rotten. His claim is built on theft, just like mine. The officers rushed in, hands out. Ma'am, step down. Calm yourself. But she screamed louder, voice cracking. This valley doesn't belong to anyone, and if I can't have it, then no one will. She raised a red gasoline can from the back of her SUV and hurled it to the ground. The stench spread through the air. The crowd shrieked, backing away. One officer lunged forward, knocking the can aside before she could strike a match. They wrestled her down, handcuffs snapping around her wrists. She thrashed and screamed like a wild animal. As they dragged her toward the patrol car, she twisted back to glare at me. Her voice was ragged, but every word cut deep. Check your precious deeds again, she hissed. You'll find a truth buried in there. And when you do, you'll wish you never came back to this valley. The SUV door slammed shut. The patrol cars pulled away, sirens echoing into the hills. Silence settled, heavy and raw. Neighbors huddled together, whispering. Some looked at me with fear now, not just hope. Karen's words had sunk into their bones. I stood in the middle of the dirt road, gripping the old chest of papers in my hands. My grandfather's legacy, my supposed proof. But suddenly, it felt heavier, darker. What if she was right? What if my family's claim wasn't as clean as I believed? That night, I spread the documents across the table. I searched every line, every note. My lantern flickered low as the words blurred in the yellow light. And then I saw it. A signature. A date. A single line written in small, faded ink that didn't match the others. Something my grandfather had tried to hide. My stomach dropped. Karen wasn't lying. There was a secret buried in these papers. Chapter 10. The Final Twist. The courthouse doors opened, and the air inside felt colder than the valley outside. Every bench was filled. Neighbors leaned forward, waiting. This was the day everything would end or begin again. Karen was led in by 2 officers. Her wrists were free, but her eyes burned like fire. She looked at me across the room and smiled, thin and sharp. The judge banged the gavel. Order. This hearing will determine the validity of the HOA and the ownership of the valley. Karen's lawyer rose. Your Honor, my client insists this man's claims are fraudulent. His so-called deeds are relics, written on paper older than most people in this room. They should not stand against years of governance by the association. I stepped forward, chest tight, but voice steady. Your Honor, these deeds are real. They were signed by county officials decades ago. My grandfather bought this valley. He passed it down legally. Every rule, every fine, every threat from the HOA rests on forged power. I set the chest of papers on the desk. The sound echoed. The judge leaned down, scanning the documents carefully. His face hardened. These are legitimate records. If they hold, the HOA never had the authority it claimed. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Neighbors glanced at each other, some with relief, some with doubt. Karen shot to her feet. Her voice cracked. He's lying. He doesn't even know what's in those papers. The judge snapped, Sit down, Mrs. Green. But she didn't. She pointed straight at me, hands trembling. Tell them about the last page. Tell them about the signature. You know what it means, don't you? The room fell silent. My throat tightened. I had seen it. A faint signature at the bottom of one deed, written in ink that didn't match. A name I didn't recognize. A date that was off. The judge turned his eyes on me. Is there a problem with the documents? I forced my voice steady. The deeds are valid, but there's a name. One I can't explain. It looks like my grandfather may have bought the land from someone who didn't own it. Gasps filled the courtroom. Karen's laugh rang out, harsh and broken. See? His family were thieves. Everything he claims rests on a lie. The neighbors' faces changed. Relief turned to unease. They looked at me not just as a defender, but as someone with shadows behind him. The judge struck the gavel again. For now, these deeds stand. The association is dissolved, effective immediately. Mrs. Green, your actions will be investigated for fraud, harassment, and forgery. Applause broke out. People stood, some crying, some cheering. The HOA was dead. But Karen didn't stop. Officers gripped her arms as she leaned toward me, hissing so only I could hear. You won this battle, but you'll dig deeper. You'll find the truth your grandfather buried. And when you do, you'll wish you never came back. The officers dragged her out, her scream echoing against the stone walls. The courtroom emptied slowly. Neighbors thanked me, shook my hand, called me their savior. But behind their smiles was a new silence, a new fear. I packed the chest of papers and carried it outside. The valley was mine now. The HOA was gone. And yet, the words on that last page burned in my mind. The wrong name, the false date. Karen was finished, but the truth she hinted at was still out there. I looked across the valley, the mountains dark against the sky. The war was over. The secret was just beginning. If you love watching my videos, then make sure to subscribe and like my video.